Hi there. In this video I will talk about the upcoming co-op crafting survival titles that I look forward to the most that will release in 2024 or beyond. Some of the titles do have a set release date for 2024, but some of the titles also not have a release date announced, so it could be much later. I should also say that there are some survival titles that I think are highly anticipated and I personally look forward to a lot that did not make the list. Like Outward 2. It is a survival title that will be possible to play in co-op, but I think it will fall more under the survival RPG genre rather than the survival crafting genre, due to most likely being very light in terms of crafting mechanics. Another title I also look forward to is Dune Awakening, but that game is not on the list either, because it is a PvP game, with, from what I understand, no option to play it as a pure 100% PvE co-op game. There will be PvE zones, but the main focus, especially the end game, will be about PvP and warfare between player factions. Well, without further ado, let's start with the actual list. And I will start with the title that, for me at least, is the least interesting one. Not because it doesn't have potential to be a really good game, it really does, but it's not really my cup of tea, and I will explain why in just a little bit. The game is Solar Punk. It is developed by a small studio, only 2 developers, Cyberware. They held a very successful Kickstarter for this game, with more than 300,000 euro pledged out of a 30,000 euro goal for the funding of the game. They reached most of the interim goals as well, except for pets, so no pets, at least not before early access release. There is no release date on Steam, but according to the Kickstarter, release is planned for 2024, probably late 2024. It is developed in Unreal Engine 5 and the Steam description reads: Solar Punk is a survival game in a technically advanced world of floating islands. Alone or together with your friends, you can construct buildings, grow food, craft gadgets, and hop on your airship to explore distant islands in the sky. I think Solar Punk is a quite interesting premise for a game. The game has a very appealing art style and what looks like a very interesting weather system. The weather will affect energy production and most likely tie into other game mechanics as well. Farming and base building seems to be the core gameplay, and I don't think the game even has combat. The Steam description do say survival, but it looks like it will be quite light on survival mechanics, even though there is player health, hunger and thirst. So I guess there must be some way to lose health even if there are no enemies, since there is a health bar. Maybe the danger is the weather. This game definitely falls in the cozy and chill category rather than the hardcore survival in terms of gameplay. And that is also the reason that this title is the title I look forward to the least on this list, because the Stardew Valley kind of gameplay is not really my thing. But if very chill gameplay with base building, farming and some light survival mechanics in an original and beautiful setting up in the clouds is something you might be interested in, then maybe this game is something for you. Also, is Solar Punk the opposite of steampunk or the opposite of cyberpunk? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. The next game I want to talk about is Forever Skies. So Forever Skies is probably a bit of an odd one to have on this list, since it is actually already out, and this being a list of upcoming titles. But it is currently only possible to play as a single player game. 4-player co-op is on the early access roadmap, so it is in a way an upcoming co-op title, even if it's not really an upcoming title. It is developed by the studio Far From Home. The studio was founded in 2020 and Forever Skies is their first game. However, since the game is out, just not in co-op, we already know what we are going to get. There is no set date for the addition of co-op, but the game released into early access in June of 2023 and the developers stated early access is expected to last for about a year. So there is a very good chance we will see the addition of co-op in 2024 for this title. The Steam description reads: Forever Skies is a first-person post-apocalyptic survival game. Return to Earth, ravaged by an ecological disaster. Fly, upgrade and customize your mobile high-tech airship base. Scavenge resources to survive, face dangers on the surface, and hunt for viral pathogens to cure the mysterious illness. So it is a little bit like Raft, but instead of a raft, you got the science fiction looking airship, and instead of sailing the beautiful blue ocean, you navigate through a very contaminated post-apocalyptic cloud. Instead of tropical islands, there are the ruined skyscrapers piercing the clouds as twisted skeletons. Instead of breathing the fresh air and working on your tan while sipping on some coconut milk and feasting on some shark meat, you desperately try to cure a disease causing you to get hurt every time you look at the sun. So all in all, it's a quite lovely setting. Forever Skies has a very positive review score on Steam, so we already know it's a good game. However, I don't think I can put it too high up on my list of anticipated games, since I think it's a bit questionable if this can be counted as an upcoming title or not. I mean, it is only that missing co-op part that makes this an upcoming co-op crafting survival title in the first place. Next up is Aloft. I think this one is a very interesting title. It is developed by yet another unknown smaller studio. Astrolab Interactive Inc., an indie game studio based in Montreal, Canada. They only have one previous title released on Steam, a little party brawler game. It's called Sacrifice Your Friends, and that title only has 14 reviews. Looking at their homepage, it seems like they have developed some other small games as well, probably for mobile, and a few board games as well. So this is not an experienced studio, and Aloft will be their first big title. However, there's actually a free playable demo of Aloft on Steam that you can try right now. The release date is indeed in 2024. The description on Steam reads: Aloft is a co-op sandbox survival game set in a world filled with floating islands. Amidst the hurricane, build a home, weave sails, harness the winds, and transform any island into a skyship to explore the clouds. Find lost knowledge to cure fungal corruption and restore the world's ecosystem. It is a very interesting setting, and this game actually reminds me a bit of Worlds Adrift. Also a crafting survival game with floating islands, airship, and somewhat similar art style. That game really never took off. It was a PvP title without much PvE content. I've seen quite a few games fail in this genre due to just that, being PvP but lacking any type of PvE. There are great PvP survival titles, but if there is no PvE content as well, the game usually ends up boring with a lot of griefing due to, well, players being bored if there isn't any PvE content as well. Aloft, however, is a co-op title without any type of PvP, and I think that is a lot easier to execute well than a PvP title. The fact that this game also has a playable demo shows confidence from the developers. Plus, of course, you as a player can try it out for yourself to see if this is something you want to keep an eye on and purchase at the time of release. I have fooled around a bit in the demo and I really think it's promising. It is fun to fly around between the floating islands to look for new recipes. I think the world is good looking. The islands I have explored so far are a bit too much of the same though, and lacking a bit of variety, but maybe that will get better before the release. The building system, however, is promising. It allows free horizontal rotation of building blocks. It also allows for free overlapping of building blocks, and the building system is very easy to use, both using snapping and without snapping. This should allow for some very creative builds. So I think this one is most certainly a game that could turn out to be very interesting. Just the prospect of building a huge floating airship that also serves as your base that you can roam the skies with is enough, at least for me, to be interested in the title. Plus again, you can actually try the demo right now. Now we start to close in on the really interesting games. One of them being Under a Rock. This game had a beautiful announcement trailer released in December of 2023. It is developed in Unreal Engine 5 by small indie studio Nordic Trolls. The studio is situated in China but was founded by and currently consists of a bunch of Norwegian industry veterans. So I guess that's the reason for the name Nordic Trolls. There is no release date yet for the game, so this one might be something we have to wait for. The description on Steam reads: a procedural open-world survival craft game for 1 to 10 players. Explore a primitive but dangerous place with a different evolutionary path. Here, wildlife is oversized, Neanderthals still exist, and curses are real. I really love the art style. It reminds me a bit of EverQuest Next. You know, that game that was supposed to be the big next MMO with a lot of cool stuff, including destructible voxel terrain and voxel building, but it ended up in just a somewhat playable tech demo where you could build stuff and then it got canned. Anyway, procedurally generated used to mean a big and empty world. But studios seem to have become better and better at using the technology, so the map being procedurally generated is no longer a red flag for me. Even thought sometimes procedurally generated still ends up with big and empty, in a lot of cases it does not. It's only a little snippet in the middle of the announcement trailer that shows what looks to be a real gameplay, and all we can really see there is that we got grappling hooks that, from the looks of it, can be used directly on terrain, so you can kind of grapple wherever you want to, and that is always fun. But there are also a few short videos showcasing real gameplay and other aspects of the game posted on the developer's YouTube prior to the announcement trailer. From what I can tell from that footage, you seem to be able to construct quite large bases. It will most likely have a building system where you snap together bigger building blocks, but somewhat free placement and rotation of decorative items. So quite standard for the genre and nothing that really stands out. I think this one is really worth to keep an eye on. Nordic Trolls have a previous title on Steam, a VR action RPG title that is sitting on a very positive review score. So this is not their first game, and their previous title was well received, even if it did not sell in big numbers. The dev team is very small, but this is not the first time a small studio managed to make a great game. Just look at Valheim. I think Iron Gate Studios, the team behind Valheim, was originally just 2 full-time developers and 1 part-time, and then later became like 5 full-time developers. So small studios nowadays can definitely manage to make great titles. The art style is gorgeous. We still don't know that much of the actual crafting, survival and building mechanics of the game, but it looks very promising. Plus, we get grappling hooks and mounts. I don't think Studio Wildcard, the developers of Ark 2, needs an introduction. Ark being one of the bigger crafting survival titles, and Ark Survival Evolved still having a large consistent player base. I actually never got around to play the original Ark. When it first released, it was very poorly optimized, and I did not have a top-of-the-line computer at the time, so I could simply not play it. Once I had a better computer and Ark was better optimized, I had moved on to play other titles. That said, I think Ark 2 might turn out to be quite the intriguing game. The fact that they hired Vin Diesel as poster boy for the game means that they are probably very serious about the story element, something most survival titles either completely lack, or if there is a story, it is very shallow. Steam has no listed release date for Ark 2, but according to the results from a quick googling, it's scheduled for a very late 2024 release. The description on Steam reads: "Survived the past, tamed the future, suddenly awakened on a primal world filled with dinosaurs and humans struggling for dominance. You must team up with legendary heroes to confront powerful dark forces. Settle up and join the definitive next-gen survival experience with Ark 2. Ark 2 is listed as an online PvP title, but also online co-op, and that is the reason it is on this list. So even if you can play on a PvP server, you don't have to. There will be enough PvE content to keep you and your friends busy for quite some time. First of all, discovering the story element of the game that at least on paper looks like it will be a lot more developed than what you usually find in this type of title. Secondly, in the shape of not only hostile dinosaurs, but also an opposing force of human-like creatures that are actively trying to drive the humans out of their world. And they will also be using tamed animals that they can ride into battle. They will use Souls-like melee combat, and there will be RPG elements with character development in form of a skill tree. There will of course also be all the usual gathering, crafting and base building that you would expect from the genre. And because it is Ark, the taming of dinosaurs. This one will very likely be one of the bigger survival crafting titles to release in 2024 or 2025. It is developed in Unreal Engine 5, so it at least has the potential to look extremely good. The fact that the game uses a very modern engine is not alone a guarantee that it will look good, but I think we can give Studio Wildcard some credit for their previous titles. But I also think it's kind of hard to judge from the trailer's cinematic footage how the game will actually look at play, and I haven't found any real gameplay footage. But hopefully later this year we will know more. Now onward to the game I look forward to the most. Light of Fire is not just my most anticipated upcoming co-op crafting survival game, but my most anticipated game in any genre. Light of Fire was announced at the Game Awards late 2023. It is developed by Hello Games, the studio behind No Man's Sky, and consequently the studio behind what probably is the greatest redemption story ever to take place in the world of computer gaming. There is no listed release date for Light of Fire, but, and this might be a hint, during the winter sale when I was browsing for co-op crafting titles, Light of Fire did show up as an upcoming title. Hopefully that at least means that the release is not 2 or 3 years away. The very short description on Steam reads: a game about adventure, building, survival and exploration together, set on a fantasy planet the size of Earth. There's not much information about Light of Fire other than the short interview with Sean Murray at the Game Awards prior to showing the trailer. The info that we can gather from the trailer itself and a few lines of text on the store page on Steam, which is pretty much the same text that you can find on the official homepage for the game. Light of Fire will be a co-op crafting survival game set on a huge single planet. According to the interview with Sean Murray, it will be a truly open world with no artificial borders. It will be possible to traverse the planet seamlessly without any loading screens, and they will let everyone play together. I guess everyone playing together must mean that everyone has the potential to play together and that we will all be playing in the same world. But there must be a limit to how many players will be able to be in the same place at the same time and actually see each other. So is what Sean means something similar to how No Man's Sky works, or is it something else? We also know that the game will have a fantasy setting, players will be able to tame and ride animals, including flying creatures. There will be persistent base building. This is an interesting one. What does the word persisting mean here? Does this mean that as you traverse the planet you will be able to come across houses or maybe even towns built by other players? Will the players need to be online for their creations to show, or will buildings and changes to terrain truly be persistent in the world? I feel like I have so many questions and so few answers. Regardless, with all the experience from all those years improving both gameplay and technology for procedural generation in No Man's Sky, it feels like this time around Hello Games have a good chance to deliver something amazing already at launch, and not 10 or so free updates later. And even if they don't, if there is one studio that we can truly trust not to take the money and run from a broken game, it's Hello Games. If it's not an amazing game at launch, they will dig down, they will get to work and keep working and releasing updates until it is. So that was the whole list. Do you agree with the games on the list? Is there some game I should have put on the list that I forgot about? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. It always helps. Now, if I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel, and I'm about to, then I think it's just fair that you get to know what you can expect in return. So the focus on my channel is crafting survival titles, but I also play some survival city builders as well. I do mostly let's plays and let's builds, but I mix that with, for example, top lists like this one, or new segments about, for example, big upcoming titles. So if this sounds like something that you might be interested in, then maybe subscribing to my channel is worth your time. I do weekly content if time allows, because this is still a hobby level channel, so sometimes I simply don't have time to actually make a video, but I try to do weekly content. I think that was all. Hopefully see you in future videos. Cheers!